All right. So, and then
And
really quick, to sum up, then you were so motivated by this story that you created a Nyad fact check website.
Right.
And
Yeah.
what is the big reason why you care so much about it?
The big reason goes back to I always get very emotional when I talk about this. I'm not exactly sure why. Uh, I the big reason is when I first started doing it, I think I first posted the site in early 2017. And at that time I didn't really know why I was doing it. I had just thought I when she did the swim, I just had it felt wrong. I started looking into it. there were there's another organization called the Marathon Swimmers Federation, and they had an online forum where a lot of people, uh, experienced marathon swimmers, met and discussed different things, including Diana's swim. And I learned I wasn't the only one who felt like there's something fishy going on here. And the more I looked into it, the more I saw that she lied about everything. And uh, and so I started putting some things together and I posted them in early 2017. Uh, Actually, the thing that kind of really pushed me at that time was I saw her on she does a lot of public speaking, and I saw her on a speaker slate with some other big names, including Vin Scully, who, the voice of the Dodgers when I was growing up.
Okay.
And I th and I thought, no, this is wrong. She should not be speaking on a slate with Vin Scully. And but that turned out I only learned about why I was doing this.
Hmm.
Um, when I went to hear her, the only time I've heard her speak live was here in Los Angeles. She gave a presentation uh, in a local venue. And whenever she speaks, she has a kind of uh, set bunch of stories that she does, but she always throws in some new BS.
After all these years and hours of training, and I could count the time just about as precisely as an atomic clock. If I take a song like Janis Joplin's version of Bobby McGee, okay? So if I sing that song and I hear it exactly the way Janis sang it, if I get to 1,000 Bobby McGee's just like that, it will be to the second 9 hours and 45 minutes. So I'm out there singing, Bobby McGee 1,000 times that song. I get to 11 hours and 7 minutes. Exactly. Me and Bobby McGee. 2,000 times. And that will take me 8 hours and 45 minutes. Exactly.
Although actually this one, she one of her most overarching lie is that she was the best or one of the best swimmers in the 1970s when I was swimming. And
Wasn't true.
no. And but at this speech, she said, I was the best marathon swimmer on the planet. I swam I held records in all the major ocean swims on Earth. There was something like that's a paraphrase, but she was very specific. Usually she's not that specific. So I went home and I looked at, okay, what were the major ocean swims at that time in the 70s? And then the English Channel obviously was the big one. And then Catalina, I did it by how many people had done the swims. English Channel, Catalina, and then a few others. And then I looked at who had done those at that time. And first of all, she hadn't done any of them. She held records in none of them.
Wow.
that's amazing. And what's weird is that it's just like, because journalists are pretty much lazy and they just echo each other.
Mhm.
So you just doing your due diligence could debunk a lot of this. And you being in the sport, I
Right.
could see how you'd have passion. You're like, whoa, Oh, wait a minute over there.
I can do
Calm
some
down.
due diligence just here looking at the internet, and I don't know
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
about it.
Which would explain why she's not challenged as much, just because of just a preponderance of just lazy journalists, and no one
Really lazy.
just like, oh, this is a good story. Let's just go with the story. It's fine.
See, it was the wrong day, and I can't beat the weather. I went 41 hours and 49 minutes, and I had committed myself so thoroughly to it. It was a swim I invented.
It's a small sport. There's only there's just not that
2,000
many
people worldwide.
and the information is scattered all over the place, and most people don't care about it. And she's been telling these same lies for over 50 years. So people, oh, they're here and they say, well, oh, that must be true. No one's ever challenged her.
So she was telling these lies long before she did this swim in 2013.
Oh, her first.
She was a liar from get-go.
I'm pretty sure she's been a serial liar since the beginning. She has we probably won't get into this, but she has good her stepfather, who came into her life when she was 3, and was probably her mentor in this, was a con man, a international smuggler. He was an amazing guy, has an even more amazing story than she does.
He was probably a
Is he
double
amazing
crosser, too,
smuggler
could
or
be my
amazing
guess.
guy?
It's the story. The
okay.
story. Now,
All right.
I got a quick interjection here. Now, from the Cuba to Key West, there's not a lot of governing body over that, but there is, you said, with the channel swim, right? Now,
Well,
is there anything with that specific swim that she made false statements on and can be easily because
Provably
being
false,
that
yeah.
that's more of a structure with that swim.
Wait, with the
She
English
didn't
channel?
English channel, yeah.
Well, not since she didn't complete them. There's really
Okay, so she's never even completed the English channel
no,
at all.
no, and
Several hundred people, 1,000 people have
it may be close to
10,000.
3,000.
Is it safe to say that any swim that has a strong governance, she avoided and she can't claim? So she did swims that can't be validated as readily or questioned as much?
No, I think I a lot of those swims, the real the ones that had the English Channel, Catalina Channel, Cook Strait, they're not swims she would want to do in the first place because they're all cold.
Mm-hmm.
She generally doesn't do cold swims. And yes, probably the governing bodies may, and also the main thing is she needs to be first. She doesn't want to be one of 2,000 people who did the English Channel.
Right.
And there's no way she'd ever have been able to set a record in it, unless the one time she went over there, it was to be the first person the first woman to complete a double crossing.
Mm-hmm.
But since she didn't do that, she has to be first.
She wanted to be Gertrude Ederle. That's what she wanted.
She wanted to be Gertrude Ederle, and
there's only one
She ain't.
Gertrude.
Exactly.
All right, so I kind of understand that. I like that. There's certain, it's like I understand that psychology. That's fine. But you sent me a bunch of things that I'd like to go over some of it, and I get some questions on it of things that I don't understand. Some of the things she said. But the first question before I get into it is: have you ever met her? You've heard her speak.
Before I get to that, I want to finish up with the other question you asked about why I do this.
Yeah.
And when I went back and I looked at all these people who had swum the swims, who had done the big, who had records in the big swims throughout the world, they broke up. There were 3 groups of people. There were English Channel centered swimmers. There were professional swimmers, and Nyad swam professionally too, was decent, but not that great. And then there were Southern California-based swimmers, my teammates,
Mhm.
Orca
and
people.
Orca people, and Seven Seas people, and every one of them who were the big swimmers back then were teammates of mine. I wasn't up to their standards, to the really good ones. But they were all the people that I trained with every day, who I met down on the beach at, early in the morning, and then who we would do, I spent tons of time with them. They're still my good friends, and they were the people who were the greatest. They and some of the English Channel people and the pro swimmers who were the actual greatest swimmers of that decade.
So it's very straightforward then. She was belittling their accomplishments and you were standing up for your friends. Is that what you're saying?
She was definitely belittling their accomplishments. I hesitate to say I'm standing up for them, because some of them have said, they don't want
why
you
are you
doing this?
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to ask, do they share your passion? Or they're like, we know in our own heads who's the best, and just leave it alone.
They know what they did. They know Nyad's a big fat liar. They just
all of them, without exception.
Of my teammates, yes, without exception.
Okay.
But they're not. We're all.
Shall we call them up? No, I'm kidding.
Some of them.
What they think outweighs
they have a
what
voice
I think.
alter.
No, one of them, who I know how she feels about Nyad, and I know how that she doesn't want me ever using her name, or saying.
Let's just make it clear. Nobody's name you have said today is her.
I'll make it clear that she doesn't want me telling how she feels.
Right. No,
a lot of people don't want to ruffle feathers.
Her name may have been mentioned today.
No, that's what I was trying to avoid you saying. That's what I was trying to avoid you saying.
We're not naming names.
You promise.
It's not
right.
Becky.
It's not. Here, I have the list of names. No. All right. I understand. I did swim team, and I was the best in the world at the time. No, but I did do swim team, and I wasn't very good. I mean, I showed up at the thing thinking I did really good, and I see there's 6 people, finished already. So it wasn't my sport, but I was always a stickler for the rules and justice, and I hate injustice, especially in sports. So referee calls just throw me over the roof. So I understand your passion. I just wanted to hear your point of view. Some of the facts that you've brought, some of the facts you brought up, and they're all over the site, are disturbing to say the least. And I just want to get into
let's address those.
I just want to just kind of I'll read over it and you can tell me. This one bothers me the most because I know a Holocaust survivor. I'm sure he's passed away since. I was very close with him, so I know a lot about this. Some of this in here may not be exactly accurate, but let's just kind of go over it. Nyad tells the story of meeting a Holocaust survivor who, beginning when she was 3, underwent horrific sexual abuse at a Nazi concentration camp. According to Barbara Distel, former director of the Dachau concentration camp memorial site, Nyad fabricated the whole thing.
Wow.
Can you tell me, and you go on with some.
Why
some
would she
things
do that?
There's no benefit. That just says she met somebody.
Liars.
She met someone who was a Holocaust survivor, but just made it up for zero reason. Tell me a little bit.
How did she even interject this story?
Where did this come from?
How does she interject it? There in one podcast episode, I've heard her tell this story about 8 times now, or read it. Okay. She includes it in her latest memoir. And in one podcast, they say, I think it was called Brink of Midnight, this podcast. You can't find it anywhere. It's kind of disappeared.
Wayback Machine. There's a way to find it.
You can't find it.
Really?
somehow, you know, they say nothing disappears from the internet, but somehow this, I linked to it in places where, because you never, with Nyad, you can't trust that anything is going to stay up for long.
All right,
So,
let's get into it. So, all right. So,
okay, anyways.
yeah.
Lots of what she says, like this story, doesn't seem to benefit her. But if you look at her body of work, she loves trauma. She's like a trauma parasite. She kind of feeds off it. So, you know, when you hear her talk about her swims, it's all about the horrible things that can happen to somebody. You know, is it the jellyfish, the sharks, things that generally don't happen to anyone. So she loves this kind of stuff. And so I think this really is a story all about her, if you look deeply at it. But, you know, it's about her being empathetic. It's about her, all she gets out of this story. And she's, you know, so other than that, you know, but she made it all up. It's just not true.
I have a question about the jellyfish and stuff. So you have some experience with this because you've done a lot of swims. Have you ever been bitten by a dangerous jellyfish, or
have you done Florida swims?
Or any of the people that you know had problems like this?
Only acquaintances. And yes, the jellyfish there, the ones that sometimes come to the Florida Straits are very they're dangerous. Not
the Portuguese man of war is.
My mom got bitten by a jellyfish once, and it was painful. But I mean, it wasn't.
We get stung every time we go to the beach here. So I'm right on the coast. It's not even. It depends on the jellyfish, but
the ones that she got stung by, she did get stung by Portuguese man of war. But the ones she talks about it now are whatever they're called. I can't remember now. But they're dangerous. They have killed people. But she says
the box jellyfish.
The box, yes, thank you. The box jellyfish.
People die on freeways too.
She says right, but she says in some of her talks that you just get stung a little bit and you're dead. That
doesn't happen. So when you were swimming, was that on your mind? Like, I hope I don't get stung by jellyfish. You never didn't even occur to you.
There weren't a lot of bad jellyfish where I was swimming generally.
Yeah, California versus Florida.
Well, fair enough.
I want to take a drag net in my beach and just suck them all out. They're everywhere. It's obnoxious.
All
right, what about
now,
this?
Jeff, real quick, about the Nyad claim of the tattoo and all that.
Yeah.
Now, you alluded to somebody debunking that, right?
It said that. And were you guys able to see the
claim.
screen share?
Pardon?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know who is that debunked that.
So she tells
something.
She tells the story in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
All her stories change, or most of them. Although in that particular thing I wrote, I talk about the things that stay the same, that show that the story's not true. That person, Dr. Barbara Distel, in a few of her versions of the stories, she sends her Holocaust survivor to the Dachau concentration camp. Now, I talked to the woman who was the head of the Dachau concentration camp memorial site, and I sent her the story, and she said it's not true.
Okay, that's what.
And I've since confirmed that with other people too, because I got called out on one of the issues in that, where I said where Dr. Distel told me it was a camp for men, but there actually were some women in there, and I checked into it and confirmed that Nyad's story is BS.
What I was thinking, like, okay, you said since 1975 all the way to now, you can find exaggerations, blatant lies throughout.
I can find them from 1970.
Okay.
Here's one, John, that's particularly interesting.
Real quick.
This kind of gives an illustration of some behavior that I understand a little bit. So it sounds like she started competitive swimming at 12. Right. But as the years go on, that age keeps getting younger and younger and younger.
Interesting.
So she said then she gets down to 9 and then 7. and she just keeps changing. So this is 2021.
She
She's
started
now
at
at
7.
age 7. She started competing. So
Because
as
I'm just
time
playing
goes on,
devil's advocate. Well, is it a dementia thing? Is it like a false memory? But what I'm trying to say is, well, no, because the falsities were 1970 all the way through. Now,
Yes.
as she's getting older, are they getting worse, or about
Yes. They,
which could attribute to dementia, right?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
you know,
I think
yeah.
it's
So it sounds like she held the whole 12, 11 years old until 2015, and then the
Mhm.
years started
It's
getting
chronological. The age keeps going down except the 98, the 8 years old in 98. That's
it's the
breaks
12
pattern.
started to slip early on.
Mhm.
Because I don't have all the times when she says the different ages. So
Right.
I think uh even by the late 70s, she was starting to stop saying 12.
Okay.
But it does get, I think it's more, it's not so much a dementia thing, although that may be happening because in her last presentation, she said something really weird that I don't think anyone sane would say, but then she's probably not sane anyways.
What'd
But
she say?
she said, it's in my, she said, she was complaining, she had 2 complaints about the movie. One was that they made her out to be an asshole. And the other was that she thinks she's a visionary. She said, I'm a kind of a visionary. And they didn't show that in the movie. She said, my crew members, they drank the Kool-Aid of my words and my emotions. And it's like she's saying she's a cult leader of some
That's
sort.
first thing that popped in my head.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
that's
Well,
really
let's
weird.
get back. Let's get back
talk
on
about
the
the crew.
claims, her official claims with her sport.
Yeah, well,
I'd
here's
like
the
to
Olympic
focus in on that.
trials. All right, so for the 1968 trials, yeah, why don't you explain some of this for us, Daniel?
Well, she often talks about her Cuba, Florida swim as her extreme dream. That's her lifelong dream. That's not true. Her big dream was to get a Olympic gold medal. And so she needs to explain why she didn't get that medal. And she does it in all sorts of different ways. But one way she talks about having gone to the qualified for the Olympic trials, and then she tells this really long, detailed story about going up to swim in the trials and getting and not qualifying, getting 6th place in the final heat of the 100-meter backstroke. Well, she didn't qualify for the trials, and there's this 14-year-old girl from Michigan who got 6th place in the Olympic in the 100-meter backstroke there, but Nyad saying she did it, and she never mentions anybody else from the trials, only herself. But anyways, that's as you can see, she gives.
It sounds like this is narcissistic. I mean, that's what Greg just said. It sounds,
textbook.
Yeah, it sounds like textbook narcissism. She needs the medal rather than the actual accomplishment. She needs the credit rather than actually the accomplishment. So
Right.
that's narcissism.
that
Doesn't care about anybody else.
I'm not a
Unless-
psychology, but that's a psychologist, but that's what it sounds like.
And unless you're really into swimming, like Daniel, and know the parameters of it, and there's not a lot. There's governing bodies, but you could totally navigate this and make up falsehoods without being questioned. I could see.
Right. Yeah,
You got to
and
have
good
a few
for
people
you.
to go on your side, though. You can't. I mean, you have to have a crew. So that's what I wanted to focus on.
Oh, you mean for the
Yeah, let's talk about how she pulled it off after we get how she could have pulled this off, because I think that's Greg curious is how could she have done this? Who was involved
She
with
had
it?
to have some people that were in.
But I really
on it.
I want to see if there's something we can see is very clear. Um, there's a lot of so much documentation here you have of things she's said, which are easily checked to see that aren't true, and they're way out there.
With the current events in the movie, is there anything in the movie that is debunked, that you can debunk? Any claims within the movie? Because that would be current and relevant right now. And the people making the movie should have checked and done some due diligence on that front.
Oh yeah, there's for one thing, that we talked a lot about touching. The fundamental rule of marathon swimming. Yeah, that's that post explains some of the things I just recently found. But the touching thing, for marathon swimmers, this is kind of a big deal because in the movie, they make it very clear that nobody touched her throughout the swim. It's a big point. They say she got no help putting on her jellyfish suit. No one else touched her. Bonnie, her best friend, who was also her head handler, her coach, went into the water, and Diana said, "Don't touch me, you can't." And Bonnie said, "Oh, I won't touch you." There are hundreds of pictures of people touching her during the swim.
Wow.
If Diana will say, well, the real rules of marathon swimming are that you can't lift anybody up, or you can't give someone forward, help someone with forward motion. Well,
that's not
that's
true.
her reframing of it so that she of the rules, so she can say, I followed the rules, but those aren't the rules. But so that's one thing. There's also the whole abuse issue, which may become more relevant because Diana has said that the main thing she wants to get out of the movie is to get her former coach kicked out of the Hall of Fame. And
Her former coach, who is this?
Her Jack Nelson, who she is accused of. She's accused of abusing her.
Okay.
And
that was in the movie or no?
That was a big part of the movie. It was
really so. That's a major accusation. What did Jack Nelson have to say, or has he passed away?
Exactly.
He passed away, I think, in 2014, but he said he said it didn't happen, and Nyad was just making things up.
What exactly was the claim? What exactly was the claim? What exactly was claim? And maybe he did, maybe he didn't. What was her claim?
Well, guess what? The claims changed over the years, and so I can't really. I mean, up until 2017, she claimed he raped her. After that, she stopped saying. She said it was there was no rape. It was a kind of molestation. And
all these accusations after he died, nothing before.
No,
the rape was early on. Yeah,
they started in 1989.
Oh, okay.
And how old was she? She started saying that in 1890, or that's when this was allegedly to happen?
She started saying it in 1989.
How old was she how old does she claim she was at this time?
Either 14, 15, 16, or 17.
Okay. So that was in the 60s?
That was in the, yeah.
So he had a chance to respond, or his lawyers or something at that time.
Right. I mean,
and he just denied it, but she wasn't pressing charges, so that's where it ended, or what happened?
Yeah. He just denied it. He said he didn't want to, he didn't want to make a big deal out of it, just that it wasn't true. Right. And she has continued to press the issue. She wrote a op-ed about it that was published in the New York Times in 2017. And that's kind of when the turning point happened, when she changed the story about actually what happened. Mm-hmm. But she's also, but she's also changed the story in one. She said it happened once when she was 17.
Mhm.
It happened all through high school, starting when she was 14. It's
And just to be clear, Jack Nelson was a high school coach, was a school
He
coach.
coached high school. He coached at the University of Miami. And he also coached like one of the women's Olympics teams. I can't remember which year it was.
Do we know if he had any other allegations besides Nyad?
Yeah.
There's been no other public allegation besides Nyad. However, Nyad has said there were many more women. She said there were 37 other women. Annette
Where did she
Bening,
get a number like that? How would she know?
Annette Bening, who played her in the movie, told an interviewer that every other woman on Diana's team had been molested. Now that obviously came from Diana. It wasn't her, but that was
You would
what
think his family would try to sue or try to make the record straight. I know I would. If somebody was playing with my father's legacy, I would come full force.
I will tell you. I want to interject a little story on this. Okay, so I was a soccer coach, and I had to turn a guy in for not. He didn't say anything, or he said something, but he didn't do anything actually, but involved something that, if it was done twice, he'd be fired. But I contacted a coach who was a police officer. He says there's no crime, but it is odd. I went and did it, and apparently, someone leaked it, and there's this whole Whistleblowers Act thing, where they're not allowed to retaliate, and they did retaliate. Here's what I know about this. There was only one instance that anyone ever reported it, but I will tell you, I know what I saw, and the kid eventually, when he was brought in, admitted to it. So these things really do happen, and that kid was about 14 or 15 years old too, and he was coaching a high school team. That club, everyone totally went after me, and I said whatever, because at least that kid is one less problem away. So with this sort of thing, my thing is this: the guy may have done it. It seems likely that all hell would have broke loose, because it did in this case with a far less thing. And John's right. The family would have come forward and said something if it wasn't true. That said, there may have been something that happened. I don't know this, Jack. And if we don't know, if there's zero facts around it, I'm just going to say this. I think these things happen, and I've seen it with my own two eyes. And that, I think, doesn't discount the other number of lies that are kind of, going on. Because just because she has lied about other things, doesn't mean that this didn't happen. And maybe this is where the lies and insecurity started coming. If it really did happen do you understand what I'm saying? I'm just kind of hinting. I don't know. But if she did have some problem, this could be a trigger for her insecurities and all of the things, and tying it all to swimming. There could be a little psychological thing going on with her. That's all I want to say with that.
I'm sure there's some psychological thing going on with her. I just and I agree with you. Yes, you just can't know. But
no way to know.
Her stuff goes much further back.
Okay. All right. Now it starts to get interesting. That's the thing I was interested in. How far before 14 and 15 did she have this going on then too?
You mentioned
the lies
already.
The lies. Yeah, that I don't think I have evidence for it going for her lying. She's brilliant at getting publicity, and all of this stuff started going. She had an article published in Sports Illustrated about her in 1970. So what is that? So that makes her 21, I think, or 22. And so, and in there she's lying, there's a ton of lies in that article.
Okay.
So I'm sure it started before that. I just don't recall whether I have evidence. There is some evidence about one of the excuses she sometimes uses for not having gotten into the Olympics was that she had a heart infection. And
Okay, is that true?
I believe it's true she had
Okay.
the heart infection, but what becomes questionable is how long it took her to recuperate. And
Right.
in some, early on, it was 6 weeks. Then it becomes 3 months. Then it becomes 4 months. It ultimately, it didn't come right from her mouth. It came from a reporter, but they said over a year. So, and
Which is it? Yeah.
the 6 weeks might have even been pushing it, but that was in the newspaper from the mid 60s. So I don't know. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, if she had heart tissue damage, that could take a while to repair. It's not like skin, you know, so it's kind of that could
It's
take a
also
while.
possible to have more than one date. Like it took 6 weeks to accomplish this, but it took a year to really totally recover. I mean, there could be more than one date, and they could both be right.
All right, so it seems very clear she definitely has a lot of very strange exaggerations and some flat out lies or a lot flat out lies, and so there's very good reason to be very suspicious of this swim, which is why I think Guinness has not awarded her the record, nor has Wowza come to her support, with the
Yeah, Guinness
exception
actually
of
withdrew
Stephen.
it.
They withdrew it, so they put it in first, and then they withdrew it because there was controversy surrounding it, or they were
I'm not exactly sure why
Okay.
they.
Probably couldn't validate it. That's a
Yeah, it's impossible
common
to
reason.
validate.
all right. So the question I think that everyone would want to know at this point is then, how did she pull it off? All of those people, it seems all of those people must be involved.
Yeah.
Well, that's
They
one of
saw it.
well, they didn't actually.
Okay.
But it is one of her talking points, and one of Stephen Munatonis, who I mentioned before, and other supporters of her. They'll say, "Well, there were 40 people on the crew. You can't get 40 people to lie." Well, you could, but
You could.
it
The
wouldn't be
lies wouldn't add up.
it wouldn't be necessary because she had uh, she had 5 boats in this little flotilla of hers, and only one boat was near her all the time. Her guide boat. It was called Voyager. Voyager had maybe 8 to 12 people on it.
Okay.
All the other ones were scattered, sometimes hundreds of yards away from her, and those people weren't seeing her most of the time. So it's really those 8 to 12 people who, and not necessarily all of them either, who would have had to know what was going on.
Can I ask about these other 4 or 5 boats who were 100 yards away? What were they accomplishing? Well, why were they even there if they couldn't see her?
She had she had a social media boat. She had for a long swim like that, you have to rotate people in and out. So she had the kayakers that were resting were on one of the boats. She had shark divers in the water with her, so there were shark divers on one of the boats. She had a medical team. Medical team was on a boat. I'm not exactly sure. She had specific purposes for each one of the boats,
Okay.
but see, and that's really not.
Yeah.
That's not normal for when you do an English Channel swim. Even Sarah's English Channel 4-way, one boat.
Sure.
So
That's enough.
yeah, but there's only Voyager had 8 to 12 people or so, and only people there would have had to know what was going on, I think, and somehow she could have engineered it so that even all of them. That's just my opinion. In that post about how she could have pulled it off, the one you showed up on the screen, I started it out with a story about a magician who sort of made a giant block of ice appear on a table in front of someone was just sitting there across from him. He lifted up his menu and there's this giant block of ice. Well, obviously he didn't manifest a giant, that wasn't real magic. Somehow he made that happen.
Right.
And I think I tried contacting a magician to ask him how he might have pulled off the swim, but I haven't got a response yet.
Okay.
I need to.
That's a good take on this. We need to reach out to a bunch of magicians and see if they can come up with some way to
And
make
a
this
clarification,
happen.
her entire crew are getting behind it and say, this actually happened. Did
All
they do
40 people?
affidavits or?
Most of them, yeah. I've spoken with two members of her crew. One of them, well, I spoke with one of her observers, and and I don't think she's lying. I think she is being completely honest about what she thinks she saw. But she said the whole time she was watching, Nyad never did anything crooked. But the other guy, who was a captain of one of the boats that wasn't near her all the time, he said, he can't say one way or the other. He doesn't know what was going on. So
he was on one of the boats that was 100 yards away.
that was sometimes that far, and it wasn't
Sometimes
near her
closer.
most of the time.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they have continuous footage of the swim video, and if there are huge gaps in the video or anything like that.
No, they only have spotty video from this one. They
Okay.
don't
What
have
year was it? I'm sorry.
2013.
2013.
Okay. They should have.
They should have had good video. Yeah.
I would have had 24-hour surveillance, and then here it
Even
is.
when you relieve yourself, you want a picture of that too.
Well, you're in the water.
But if you were going to commit fraud, that would explain why you wouldn't want. My question is, did they really? It seems like she's into marketing and telling the story and exaggerating the claims, building the drama. Sounds like she was kind of wanting to film from the beginning. It sounds like, and if you did, you can make a lot of money off of that film, the rights to the film alone. And who cares about
I'm
the
just
facts?
thinking, how much did it cost to hire 44 people and a bunch of boats for at least a couple of days minimum? I mean, it could have been a lot longer than that.
Couple
That's
$1,000.
not cheap. Where's
Couple
that
$1,000.
money?
That wouldn't be that much.
More than that.
I think it'd be a lot.
A point
I've had employees and it's not cheap.
I know.
all of those people were volunteers. That's a big, or she says they were. That's a big point she makes in a lot of her presentations. She didn't pay anyone a dime. That's what she says. But she did. There are some people I'm pretty sure she paid. The boats she probably had to pay for to
Somebody owned them.
Pardon?
Some of the 44 people
Right.
owned a couple of the boats.
Right.
I
And
suppose.
she had sponsors for this.
Okay.
She said it took about $1 million to put it on.
I
So-
believe
And I
that.
could see people wanting to be involved with it. It's a pretty
Yeah, I'd go.
remarkable thing.
I'd go.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
I personally believe that someday somebody will actually do it and do it in a way that'll be recognized by people like you.
Cannot be
Do you agree
debunked.
with that? That someday it'll happen. It's kind of like the 4-minute mile. It'll happen someday. Just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a matter of somebody wanting, you got to find someone who wants to do it. And the reason, I think the reason a lot of people wouldn't want to do it is that water's really warm. Nyad says it's cold, but it's
Too
not.
warm?
It's warm, and it's like mid-80s, I think.
Wow.
And if you swim in something like that for a long time, I mean, you can overheat, I think. Although she swims with her suit on, the jellyfish suit, and says she gets cold. But
What time of the year, if I may ask, was this in 2013?
it was August 31st through September.
August. I don't even go to the beach. I'm in northern Florida. I don't even go to the beach in August. It's hot.
Yeah.
It's literally hot.
But has the water temperature changed that much from summer
Oh
to
yeah.
winter?
Oh yeah,
It
huge.
well, near the shore, but out in the ocean, does it? I'm just
I
asking.
think
Yeah,
so.
it does. It does. Yeah,
Okay.
because we're watching it with. That's why there's not hurricanes typically after a certain time. The water's not warm enough.
Okay, so the smart thing to do would be to go in January or February or
Yes.
something, right?
Yeah.
Go when it was cooler.
Yeah, you could
Okay.
still swim there. You could still swim
See,
there.
I'm looking for like this Gertrude, I've forgotten her last name,
Ederly.
Andrew Ederly. Now, she was 21 when she did her swim. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that because she's at the top of her form, and I'm looking for somebody in their 20s. No offense to old guys like us, but I mean, honestly, that's what I'm expecting, and they come prepared and they're doing it the right time of year. Everything they do makes sense. I believe a story like that, but this one is just so many things that don't make sense.
I'd like to ask a question about the jellyfish suit. Is that common in that area, or is this something one-off?
Jeff says
They
there are a lot
did.
of them.
Well, in places where there are jellyfish, where there are dangerous jellyfish, I think it's common. But
Okay.
yeah, it's not real common among marathon swimming in general, but for
But in that geographical area, it's plausible that you would definitely do that because there's
right, but it would still, if you wanted to be technically an unassisted swim, you couldn't wear the jellyfish suit. Even and there's a lot of other things that Nyad did that made it that would have made it an assisted swim, even if she hadn't worn the jellyfish suit. But technically, like I said, an unassisted swim is one with just
Would you wear a jellyfish suit if you were doing a swim like that? I mean, would you recommend it, or do you think it's not something to worry about, or what?
Yeah, if I was going to do the swim, but it's not a swim I would ever want to do.
Yeah, I get that, but
not a swim most people.
if you were
in
coaching
tech-
somebody who was doing the swim, would you say, I think you should wear a jellyfish suit? Or would you say, I don't worry about it, it's not a big deal?
I think it's pretty horrible getting stung by the box jellies. I would say the idea of going at a different time of year, if possible, when the water's cooler and maybe the jellyfish aren't there, that would probably be best. But I mean, I don't know that body of water, so.
Sure.
and the jellyfish suit, hers in particular, is alleged to have propellers on it. I'm kidding.
No,
All right.
no.
We're at about 10 minutes till or 5 minutes till. We usually just wrap it up with one last question before then. Who would like to ask one last bugging question?
Well, I guess I'm thinking about the orca party. First of all, every time you said double crossing, I always thought of mafia. So I just had to point that out.
Dirty rats.
Yeah, you know,
Call yourselves the mafia
In
swimmers.
the English Channel, they don't
But-
say that. They say two-way.
Two-way,
just
yeah.
say
That's, I don't know,
two-way.
just something about it. Just
Three
rubbed me
ways
the
are
wrong way.
fun. 2 ways.
But
are kind of
but no,
unknown.
you did allude to it earlier. You said that you'd met her, and then you said I'll get to that later. But then we never heard about that. So maybe that's a good place to end.
Yeah. So when I did the triathlon in 1980, I think it was, the Ironman in Hawaii, she had just started her career commentating for ABC's Wide World of Sports. And she was assigned to the Ironman. And when at the end of the swim, I was tied for second. So I was doing really well. And I knew though that after that it was all downhill, but I did well on the swim, and then took off on the bike, and then I got a flat tire just outside of Waikiki, and so that I can use that as my excuse for why I didn't do so well on the bike. But she and the Wide World of Sports people caught up to me somewhere after that, and she poked her head outside of their vehicle and asked me what happened after the swim, what, and I can't remember what I told her, but that was the one time I met Diana, when she was asking me why I was doing so badly on the bicycle.
Something she said, it really pissed you off.
People have said that, but no, it hadn't.
No, I'm just kidding. Daniel, it's a real pleasure. And you had said that there's an award. She's getting an award something. This is kind of, well, we should end on this one, I guess. She's getting an award this next week or so, isn't she? Down in Miami? Tell me what award? We should have asked that earlier, but go ahead and really quick, tell us what this award is.
Well, she got an award it was in Fort Lauderdale where the Hall of Fame is, but it was at the Stonewall Museum. And I can't remember the name of the award is something like a hero for our times. And but I think that was Saturday. Yeah,
just recently.
But the big thing, the big awards coming up, of course, are the Oscars, because Annette Bening and Jodie Foster, who were in the movie, are up for Oscars. And then,
well, they may deserve it. I mean, they're good actors, so.
Yeah, but I don't know how they got involved in this.
I said this last time, but Hollywood lies for a living, so
yeah, they're always looking for stories.
And
they don't care.
It is a great story, not knowing the background and the fibetry. And that award is funny because everybody wants to ride the train of the movie. So let's just give her an award, and people do go to that area, and that is, but it's not really. It's a superficial award.
Someday, someone is going to make a really good movie about Diana Nyad, because there's so much more to her. She's really a fascinating person, but that's not the story they told in the movie.
Hey, if you like these kind of conversations and you'd like to see more, click like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're at the computer and you'd like to hear the whole podcast, click right here.